Welcome to Self-Defense for Women Live an Empowered Life, the podcast that helps you stay safe, feel strong, and take control of your personal security physically and emotionally. I'm Julie Waite, Women's Safety Advocate, and alongside me is self-defense expert Dene Josham, former bodyguard of Angelina Jolie, Brad Pitt, and Russell Crowe. So this episode was inspired by a media interview we did this week on a serious but common question: what should you do if you're getting mugged? And it actually came from a thread that has gone viral, which reads, I'll read it now. I once got mugged in an alley by a guy with a knife. The guy took my phone, my wallet, and my tobacco. He saw there was no money in my wallet, that my phone was rubbish, and made himself a roll-up. He then said that I was obviously struggling, gave me back my stuff, punched me in the stomach, and left. Honestly, apart from the punch and fearing I was about to get stabbed, it was a pretty polite interaction. Now, I think because the guy that shared this shared it in a kind of humorous way, other people have jumped on and started sharing things that's happened to them and their muggings, and they've been kind of doing it in a funny kind of way, if that topic can be funny. And there's a lot of people on there that have said they've fought back and then they've managed to keep the stuff. Then there's other people saying that the things that happened. One said they were mugged by a 12-year-old with a Swiss Army knife, and they actually got stabbed by them, but then they managed to get the knife off them and they kept it to this day and they use it to open their Amazon parcels. And then there's someone else saying they saw someone getting mugged on the beach and they went to help them, and then the person that was getting mugged ran off and the attacker tried to strangle them. So I think because there's been all this discussion about muggings, and then because there's been quite a lot of people saying they fought back, people are wondering, well, what should I do? Should I fight back? Should I give them my stuff? What's the best response? So let's dive straight into this. And Dean, what's your advice? Let's just get straight into it. If someone's getting
Yeah,
mugged,
yeah.
what's your advice?
So if someone's trying to mug you, that's antisocial violence. So for whatever reason that they're doing it, you can't de-escalate them, you can't reason with them because they're intent on getting your possessions. That's a whole nother topic. It could be for drugs, it could be to fund a gang, it could be to feed somebody or themselves. So for me, nothing's more valuable than you are. So for me, give it up, because you can replace these things, whether it's a phone, a wallet, a laptop. You can't be replaced. I've
Mm,
read some of their thread, and some of it is quite amusing because of how they framed it and said stuff like the guy then saying, apart from fearing being stabbed and getting punched in the stomach, it was quite a polite interaction. And you go, wow, them two things there, potentially getting stabbed is quite a big thing.
mm,
Um, and so kind of people look at the funny side of things, probably to help them deal with it. So it could have turned out a lot worse, like the guy with the Swiss Army knife saying he uses it now to open his Amazon packet. If that had been a different stab in a different area, he could be dead.
yeah.
So for me, no possessions are more valuable than your life. That's my opinion. Other people might disagree. I work hard for that. I shouldn't have to give it up. Yes, you're right. But your main goal, as far as I see, is to make sure you always survive and you always get back to the people that love and care for you. Again, for me, a phone isn't worth getting stabbed, isn't worth
Mm,
your life. And that's where the psychological part comes in, where you're sort of resisting against it because it's my stuff. I've worked hard for it, and that's wrong, and it's an injustice. So I can understand why people go physical, but the reality is it could be a situation that ends up you losing your life.
yeah. I think that's the problem, isn't it? You you want to stand up to people. You don't want to live in a world where it's acceptable that someone could come up to you in the street and rob you of your stuff. And you want to stand up to people because there's kind of a bit in your head going, well, if we don't stand up to them, then people just be running riot, doing whatever they want. However, you don't know what's going on like you said, you don't know what's going on inside the head of that person
Yeah,
and how
yeah.
desperate they are and how they may have a very, very low view of the value of human life and your life. And their objective is just to they need to get the phone or whatever it is, because if they don't, something really bad's going to happen to them, or because they're so desperate for the next hit of drugs or whatever it is, that your view of human life and their view of human life is very, very different, and they
Yeah.
may not think twice about stabbing you to get your phone.
That's where you've got to look at it wherever you are, what the dangers are. Because I know if you go to London, potential phone snatching, people getting robbed for nice watches, things like
Mm,
that. So understanding wherever you are, what the criminal element are doing, and realizing, okay, that's the problem, that's the issue. What do I do to stay safer? And that changes wherever you are. Like if you go to different countries, you've got a different the things you have to deal with culturally, potentially, economically, things like that. You know, I've been to some countries where, as a Westerner, we're viewed very wealthy. So it's like that puts me in a higher position to be
mm,
targeted just because I'm from the UK. And you know, wherever that place is, people potentially are struggling more, and they see me as a person who they could get money off, and
mm,
they play by very different rules. You know, it doesn't matter on size and ability. You know, if somebody's desperate and they need whatever they need from you, the motivation is massive. So there's a lot of things to consider. It's that's a real
mm.
complex kind of thing when you start digging into it. But yeah, it's nothing's worth, no possession's worth your life or your physical or your, you know, mental health, well-being.
Yeah. So, I mean, we're quite clear in our position then. If someone is trying to rob you of your stuff, that's not the time to kind of break out your physical self-defense moves and things that you know. That's the time to calmly hand over what it is they want and focus on getting away and getting yourself to
Yeah.
safety.
And that's being real, isn't it? If you do fight back and that's a personal choice, then you've got to realize the consequences of that. And that could be your life, you know,
Yeah,
and that's the reality. It's not trying to scaremonger or be dramatic. That's what happens daily to people.
yeah, it is. And I think, I mean, there are some things that you can do to avoid being in that situation in the first place. So, shall we go through a few of those? Because it can feel a bit, it's a bit like, oh, right, great. So, if I get mugged, I'm just going to give up my stuff. Well, that's like, it feels a bit
Yeah.
defeatist, doesn't it, when you think about that?
Yeah.
But actually, you have got quite a lot of power to avoid being in that situation in the first place. So, what are some things that people can do?
Definitely being observant to where you are, the environment and the people. So realizing if I'm going into somewhere, so knowing your environment. So if I know there's an area of town that I can't avoid and it might have more criminal element in there, that I'm more switched on and plugged in. So many things happen because people aren't present. They're on the phone. Um, you know, they're listening to stuff,
Mm,
podcasts when they're walking around, and they're in their own little world. So by being more switched on to what you're walking through, how that's always changing, that will give off a signal to other potential people who are
mm,
targeting somebody to mug that actually you're a little bit more aware. So potentially they're going to pass you by to look at somebody who's probably got the phone there and looking at TikTok videos because, you know, you're walking around and people say, well, it's boring, it's dead time, I can
mm,
do more productive things. And you go, not what's more productive than staying safe? So it's to realize the dangers in your environment and also realizing the people around you, like we've discussed before, what doesn't fit in, the people where they're stood, where they're moving, you know, what's going on that you're kind of drawn to go, that doesn't really look right or it doesn't fit in. And then paying attention to that and making sure that you avoid them kinds of people.
yeah. And I think if you can be present and put your phone away and let's be honest, phones are the biggest issue here because I'd say like 95% of people that you see when you're out and about, particularly in cities, are on the phone. And so if you can put your phone away, it helps you in so many ways. Like one, because the phone isn't out, that makes you less of a target for phone snatching. Two, you are then more able to see what is going on around you. And three, you're not distracted. You're not looking down. You are able to be present and see what and just like notice if something is happening. And people, when they're profiling victims, who they're going to pick, if you're looking around and you're confident and you're switched on, they're less likely to pick you. They're more likely to pick someone who's oblivious because they can ambush them and then be gone before they've even
Yeah.
realised something's happening. So there's a lot of benefits to just going, okay, I'm going to get into a new habit, new routine. I'll put the phone away and I'll just scanning around, you're just noticing, being present, and just scanning, seeing what's happening and who looks out of place or a little bit odd or off.
Yeah, a woman said to me, she'd already been mugged, the phone had been taken. Look, how much is that worth? And if I give that to whoever's listening or watching, I said, go and I'll give you that phone, go and get rid of it. You get rid of it for 20 quid. So people are walking around with this in a hand. That is like walking around with a bunch of money. So how can I reduce that? Oh, if you can put your phone away, of course you can. Unless you're lost and you're using Google Maps, then if you stop, look around, make sure it's safe to use it,
Mm.
and then get a few directions, put it away. A woman said to me, "Oh, well, I got mugged. She got a phone snatched," and she goes, "What can I do?" I said, "Well, why did you need your phone?" "Oh, well, I had emails to answer and text messages." I'm like, you don't have to answer them. That's the
Mm.
reality. If the king or the president rings you or whoever, you know, they can wait. Your safety is more valuable, is more important than then taking a phone call from
Mm.
whoever it is. Even your mum, like the woman was saying about it was her mum had messaged her, so she had to message her back. I'm like, I'm sure your mum would have been okay if you'd messaged her 20 minutes later or got in a position where you're safe, like in a shop or something where it's more secure, more safe, that you could have replied rather than answering as you're walking along. So reality is difficult because it's that harsh reality is you can't put your phone away. You don't need to be on social media. You don't need to be answering emails, all these things,
Mm.
because you need to be present. And that's the opportunity people can give criminals, career criminals. They know what they're doing. They know, potentially what they're looking for in a person to target. So the less you are on their list of the tick boxes they probably have, the less chance they're going to target you, and they're going to move on to somebody who is less observant, who's got a phone out, who's got headphones on, who's doing this rather than looking around and just being present and scanning everything.
Yeah. And I think as well, if you have had put some thought into this now in advance so that you know that, okay, if I get mugged, I'm going to give up my stuff, then you're in a much better position to just deal with the situation that's happening in front of you rather than thinking, do I give it up? Do I not give it up? Do I fight? Do I not? And you're trying to make those decisions on the spot. So if you've already
Yeah.
made the decision that, okay, if I get mugged, I'm going to let it go, then you know all you have to focus on is trying to deal with that situation and get away as safely as you can.
I think as well as looking at that, like we always say, the what if game, what if this happens in a nice environment where you can think about it, go, well, actually,
Mm.
what would I do if somebody jumped out and they had a knife and I wanted my phone? What do I actually do? By thinking about it, you've got a kind of game plan already. You understand how potentially you might react. Because if you've never been in that situation before, you're dealing with, even if you have, you're dealing with a lot of
Mm.
things, adrenaline, fear, all these emotions and trying to process it. If you thought about it and you know yourself as in, I'm just going to give up my phone, my wallet. That's fine. I'm okay with that. I'm annoyed, upset, but I can deal with that, but I'm safe. Then you know your responses or potentially what you can do in that situation. Like I just said earlier, these people probably done it before. If they haven't, guaranteed they've probably rehearsed it. They're going to look at
Mm.
specific areas where they're going to do it. They're going to pick their time. They're going to pick their person, and they're going to make sure everything's stacked as much as it can be in their
Mm.
favour. So we've got to look at it to stack it in our favour as much as we can to go, okay, it's just a phone. It really is just a phone because no phone is worth anybody's life.
No. And I think as well, if you can just know that there are things that you can do, like we said, with the being aware. And also, if you do notice something, take an action really quickly. So quite often people say, oh, I thought they were a bit dodgy, or I thought I had a weird feeling about them, or the way they were stood there was wrong. But if you get a sense of something, like I had when I was long time ago when I was a student who went to Amsterdam, and we were walking along, and it was where the canal was, and then there was some different bridges, and up ahead of us there was a guy on a bridge, a bit of a dodgy looking guy, and he was signaling to a guy behind us, and just immediately me and my friends, we all knew straight off, like because there wasn't many other people around at that point, we immediately knew like they're going to target us. I mean, we were already on high alert because one of my friends had been mugged twice within 10 minutes. And thankfully the second mugger just said, when he said, "Oh, I've already been mugged," he was just like, "Oh, all right then," and then kind of left him. Didn't do anything to him, thankfully. But I just knew straight off. There's just this feeling like they've spotted us and they're signaling. And they were kind of whistling to the one behind, and it was just like, yeah. So we just got
Yeah.
away as quickly as we could.
It's that instinct that is quicker than your logical brain that kicks in. So you don't really know why, but it's there, and you go, and then you sort of try and process it logically and go, "Oh, I'm being daft and silly." That's when, we need to listen to that instinct. And what you said there, he looked a bit dodgy, but also that deception can be used to lure us in. I remember training some NHS staff in Birmingham, and one of the women shared a story that there was a guy walking around in a suit, looking very smart,
Right.
and he was targeting people because he was engaging by saying, and he spoke very well to sort of ask where directions were and things like that. But where he was doing it was like more remote. There was not many people about, so that was the opportunity because nobody there to help and assist, and it was that deception part that kind of lured people into that sense. Oh, he's a businessman wouldn't mug people, but
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
how we dress. So it's that reality that deception is used against us, and also, obviously it can work in our favour depending. So yes,
yeah.
not all baddies or whatever you want to call them, criminals, have a certain look. Like we've touched on before, it could be women, it could be any gender, it could be couples. So it's just to really be aware of that intuition as well as what's going on around you.
Yeah, it's just reminded me actually of a video we use in the training, in the self-defense training, which if anyone is interested in learning
Shoplifting.
more of these skills and learning the physical elements as well that we teach, we've got a great course called 7-Day Self-Defense for Women. It's an online course. Check that out. If you use the code podcast25, you get an extra 25% off. But a video that we've got in there, and it's in London, and it's some women stood at a traffic lights waiting to cross, and they're just chatting to each other. One's got a bag over her shoulder, and then these two ladies come up behind, and they are very well dressed. They're very young, like really well turned out. You just wouldn't suspect them. And they come up behind, and within about 10 seconds, they've lifted the purse out of the bag, and they've not even, the people that were standing there haven't even noticed. So yeah,
Yeah, it's interesting, that one.
it can be anyone.
Because the dynamics of that video is the people they target were tourists. So they were having a great time looking around London. And
Yeah,
like you said, the two women that were there, you would think they're like trendy influencers
yeah, you would.
because
That's what they
they're,
look
what
like.
were they, mid-20s, and you're like,
Mm,
no way you would have thought they would have done that. But yeah, it's a great example of that deception that, people use.
mm. So, the other angle to cover is, well, we say give them the stuff. So you're in a situation and they've asked for your bag or your purse or whatever. You've given it to them. If that is all they want, that should be the end of the interaction because they wanted to get away and you obviously wanted to get away. But there are situations where they may then change their mind and think, okay, I've just mugged this woman. I'm on a quiet street. There's an alley down there.
Yeah.
What else can I do? And
Yeah,
they
it's that.
might want to take it into some sort of physical attack. They might
Yeah.
want to think, right, maybe they've got other people and there's a car and they want to get you in the car, or they want to get you down an alley, or there's just some other element then other than the mugging, and that's when you need to take a different approach, and it's not you can't just go along with what they're wanting you to do then.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, or take anything you want, but just don't hurt me. When somebody's compliant, depending on obviously the bad person, they
Mm,
might go, this person's completely compliant, do anything. Okay, well, I just wanted your bag, your purse. Now, okay, now I'm sort of going to escalate that to something physical. So, that's the time when potentially, you can use deception in your favor to create a chance to be physical if you want to pick to be physical, and that's, the severity of it. If someone's trying to get you in a car, for me, that's serious because
mhm.
statistics show us, you get in a car, the longer it goes on, the less chance you are got of surviving, especially if they take you remote. So, you get into a car, is it, you grab the steering wheel, depending where you are you in the back, you're at the side of them, do you grab the driver's head, do the physical stuff. But for me, you take action as quick as you can.
Avoid getting
And
in, you obviously
yeah,
you'd have to think
that's
about
serious.
if they've got a
Yeah,
knife to your throat, you'd have
yeah,
to try and pick your moment. But
yeah.
it's that is the point when you're
It's
trying to get away or you're trying to fight back.
yeah,
If if it's just a robbery, then you're letting it go. If they're trying to do something to you, then
yeah.
that's the moment when you need to use those physical skills. So when you're if we're going back to the mugging, when you're handing your stuff over, is there a case to say then you need to be quite like assertive or confident in doing that rather than being like, oh, just take my purse, don't hurt me? Because you might then give them the impression when you're giving the purse that you are um that you're like an easy target and they think, oh right, well I'll escalate it now. If you're kind of
Well,
quite strong and confident in just kind of giving it them, not pleading or anything like that.
yeah, but I think if they've already targeted, they might see you as not strong and confident. Well, I don't know. You're not saying that you're not, but it's there's so many because everyone's very different. Situations are different. There's a lot of things to consider. So it's not quite do this, do that, and there's no 100%
Hmm.
guarantees. You could be really nice to the person and go, yes, please take that. Okay, I'm not going to give you any problems, and they might just flip it around and take it to more extreme levels. So it's the second by second judgment on what's going on to how you can manage that person, that situation, as well as yourself to go, okay, maybe I'm nice and I speak nice to the person and all this, because if I'm not, that might increase them because they're being aggressive, and I can just sense that if I'm not talking nice to them or whatever,
Hmm.
then that's going to push them to the point where they might really physically hurt me. So there isn't a do this, do that. There's a look at it, think about things before and go, and everybody who hopefully is listening to this or watching it has that skill set to go, we know how to manage people, speak to people. And it's like, we speak to different kinds of people in different ways because we understand everyone's different. So it's to try and use that in that situation that's going to help benefit us to, if you give your stuff up, they have it, and to make sure you can escape, you can get away to safety.
Yeah. Okay. So before we go, we want to leave people with something practical to think about that can make a difference if this kind of thing should ever happen to you. Hopefully that would never happen. But if you just next time you're out and about walking around, just try it. Put your phone away, be present, take a look around, do a little 360 scan around you, see what's going on, see if you can notice different things, watch people's body language. And in doing that, you're just starting to get into a habit of being present, and that will keep you a lot safer.
Can I share something? For me, when I walk around, I'm walking around. I want to understand a 360 of what's around me. So I'm walking. Sometimes I will just turn around and look like that. Not because I'm paranoid or worried. I just want to know where people are, where the position, and what's going on around me. Like I always say, if you're in the jungle, you're not going to walk around on your phone like this, are you? Because there's
Mm,
predators out there. There's lions, tigers, things that want to eat us. So for myself, I'm always observant and looking around people, what they're doing, just registering. Oh, there's a couple there. Oh, there's a man walking a dog. There's a family there. Just have that 360 picture of what's going on and how that's kind of changing. And then just being observant. If somebody's behind me and they're speeding up, I'm like, okay, I know they're getting closer. Okay, what they're doing, are they,
mm,
you know, profiling him to go, okay, that's a man with a kid who's late potentially because he's walking fast with his child or whatever. So it's just to have that bit paying attention, sometimes pausing just to glance around, not because you're paranoid, because you want to understand the environment's always changing, and people are coming and out, emotions are always changing, and you're just keeping, you know, up to date with it as you go about your daily life.
yeah. Okay, so I hope that's helpful for people, got a bit more information there. And if you find our content helpful, we would really appreciate it if you could subscribe, leave us a review, share this with someone who needs to hear it. Let's help keep each other safe. And thank you, and we will see you again next time.